welcome back to the Creating Wealth and Wellness podcast. I am Tara Missildine, and I co-host this show with Amanda Kingsley, and we team up to take you on a journey every week, one where freedom is cultivated through personal development, where women connect to fuel their futures, and where wealth is created as a byproduct of being well. And every single week, we talk about our lives and how they are affected by one of those things, or vice versa. So, Amanda, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi. Today, we are actually going to talk about a requested episode that one of our listeners on the Facebook page asked for. And to be fair, it was many moons ago that she asked for this. But she wanted us to talk about teaching gratitude to our children. So I think that this, is another fantastic parenting topic, but it also says a lot about who we are as women and how we show up in the world. So before we get to that, I think it's a very key segue to share our gratitudes.
Oh, go ahead. Do you want to share first?
Okay, let's see. Well, my gratitude opened up a can of worms last week. If you haven't heard that episode about the color blush and how much I love it, but it spurred quite the conversation with Amanda and I. So if you haven't heard that yet, jump back over to last week's episode and give it a listen. Tell us what you think. Let's see. This week, I am grateful for birds. I love birds, all kind of birds. We raised chickens. We had hawks kill our chickens. We have robins and sparrows and swallows and all sorts of flying friends that happen around our yard. And I love waking up to the sound of birds and bird song. And since that actually hasn't been happening for a while because it's winter here in New England, I have an awesome app. And I guess I'm going to actually save that app for a future gratitude because I do love it, but it has the sound of birds in it. Okay, there we go. Birds.
I've been saying to my kids, do you hear it? The birds sound different. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the spring. Can hear the birds.
It's coming.
The birds are different. They're like, okay, Mom. No, really, you'll notice it.
Someday you'll care about that.
So I will just agree with you that I have been noticing this sound of the spring birds. And really love it.
Cool. I love when we come together like that. All right. I'm grateful for that too, Amanda. I'm grateful for the connections that you give me.
That was my kisses. Did you hear them?
Okay. So today we are going to be talking about teaching our kids gratitude. And I guess we could look at this. We could come at it from lots of different directions because it could be teaching our kids gratitude, teaching our kids to be grateful for something, or sharing gratitude with our children. So how do you feel compelled to start off?
Yeah, I feel like we did an episode at some point that talked about gratitude, and as we know, there's so many gazillion layers.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we mentioned kids, like for me, the biggest thing is modeling. Remembering to model. So I have a lot of gratitude. I think grateful thoughts, I think thankful thoughts, they are what shape my reality in so many ways. But in parenting, I have to be more aware to say them out loud and not just think them. Mm-hmm. So it's not a step that like sometimes it's a step that feels almost unnatural, but I have to remind myself as a parent, unless I say it, they can't read my thoughts. Yeah. So even though they're feeling the energy of my gratitude, it is important, I think, to say out loud, like, what a beautiful day we're having, or look at this amazing food we have on our table. Or so even though it feels a little like it's not something, I don't know, I guess for me, it doesn't feel unnatural because it's not true. It's just normally something I would think and not say out loud. Mm-hmm. So in parenting, I remind myself to say out loud.
Yeah, that's a great point. That sort of reminds me of a previous episode where you talked about the value of simplifying your lessons for your children.
Yeah.
And like our kids don't necessarily read our minds, and they need to hear when we're grateful for something. So I love that point.
Yeah.
So something that is coming up for me as I think about this is the huge difference in this topic of teaching your child to act grateful or teaching your child to experience gratitude.
Yeah.
So like I do find myself many times saying like, oh, well, what do you say, Aria? You know, like when somebody does something nice for her or sort of coaching her to like to show gratitude. And I think it's so much more important to guide her in like experiencing gratitude.
Right.
You know, like how does that show up for a 3 or 4-year-old? It might not show up the same way like that, but sort of like kind of coaching that out of her. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the difference between like showing it and feeling it?
Totally. Like yesterday we were at a birthday party and like all the kids left the birthday party and they went up to the adults and they said, thank you. And it's beautiful. It's great, but it was very much a coached experience. Which maybe is a reason to bring, I'm terrible about thank you cards, but one of the nice things about thank you cards is that you can go home, reflect on your favorite piece of something. Like instead of like, thanks for the gift, like I love playing with this new toy with my friends. And so you're having like, you're sharing the experience of gratitude versus just saying the words like because you got a gift or because you went to a great party.
Yeah, so like when we talk about teaching our kids gratitude, it's not necessarily like it's not the same as teaching them good manners. You know, good manners is to say thank you when someone does something nice for you or gives you a gift or something like that. And I guess the difference for me is like true gratitude lies in not receiving a whole bunch of gifts and then saying, okay, I want more gifts. Like that's not living into gratitude for those gifts. And that's something that I'm struggling with now as my daughter just turned 4. And she's an only child. And I know it's a very different dynamic when you're constantly showered with everything you could possibly want and then some by all of the people and adults in your life. And you have basically no competition for all the goods, you know, all the goods, all the attention, all the accolade. And I do wonder, like, this is definitely a topic where I have a lot to say. I'm not sure that I confidently know how to teach my daughter gratitude besides modeling for her being grateful for what I have.
Yeah, and just talking about it is making me go, oh, I should, or oh, I could, or oh, I'm going to remember to. Because it is something that I don't consciously like bring into my parenting as much as I'd like to. So just having this discussion is a good reminder too.
Which is so funny because gratitude is such an important part of our lives. And if you really think about it, you probably discovered it as an adult. Like I know I did. I know I discovered the practice and the power of gratitude well into my adulthood, not as a child.
And so, a lot of when you discover it is based on lessons about like the law of attraction.
Right.
So even when we learn it as an adult, we're often learning it based on this idea that we will create a better life for ourselves, which is true.
Right. But that's treating gratitude sort of as a tool, right? It's like gratitude is now a means to an end, but I don't like consciously, I don't think that we believe that.
It's so interesting.
But that's how so many of us develop a practice around gratitude.
Which maybe is okay. I mean,
I'm not judging it or anything. It's just interesting.
Goal. Yeah, if you get one thing about gratitude, I know in like gratitude journaling, which oftentimes is presented as, you know, you want to improve the quality of your life, improve the quality of your experience of gratitude. So a lot of times people will mention gratitude journaling, which my favorite way to gratitude journal is to pick one thing and write like 3 to 5 sentences about it. Like, I'm grateful for the birds because when I hear the birds, I feel life without birds would be, life with birds is. And so instead of just listing like my health, my family, my job, my healthy food, because that just gets mundane and boring and you're not really feeling the gratitude. When gratitude journaling, I always recommend that people feel into one thing instead of listing 10.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, to feel into gratitude rather than have gratitude.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a state of being more than it is
Yeah.
like a destination.
Cool. But yeah, how do we, and it gets very different talking to a 4-year-old about gratitude than it does a 13-year-old. Because developmentally, and when we're parenting kids, they're going through so many different stages of mental processing and experiencing the world. And sometimes, you know, they'll do things at any age where you're like so proud and feeling like I'm nailing this. My kid totally understands gratitude. And then other times you're like, what did I do wrong?
And in reality, it's never actually about us in those moments.
Exactly. But it is totally, I mean, in some ways it is. I don't agree that it's never about us, because if we're not doing the modeling, or if we are always looking and asking for more ourselves, then
yeah, of course. Yeah, but they're entitled to have moments where they revert to other stages of being.
Just
and
as
that moment is not our failure, it's their choice.
Okay, ego says, cool. What did I do right or wrong? But the reality is, it's just the human experience.
Yeah, it's their journey. They have a right to every bit of it, every passage. Okay, so one thing that I do with, because I guess another great place to take this conversation with is like, what are the concrete rubber meets the road things that we actually do with our children to help teach them gratitude?
Yeah.
And one of the things that Aria and I were doing for a little while she was still 3, this was maybe 6 months ago, and this was when I was in an extremely gratitude-focused part of my journey. So I would even venture to say that I did it more for myself than I did for her in that moment. But as part of our snuggling routine at night, I would ask her, like, what were the things that you loved about today?
Yeah.
And at the time it started because I wasn't with her a lot and I wanted to hear about her day. So I started saying, like, what did you love about today? And it seemed like an easy thing for her to process, rather than like, oh, what were you grateful for today? Because that word didn't mean anything to her.
Totally.
But what did you love about today? And she was listing things that, like, she was grateful for,
right?
In the way that she could, and it did become a beautiful little ritual that she liked to do. And we have since let it go, but I'm thinking maybe I should try to bring it back, especially now that she has even more processing skills. 6 months in the world of a 3-year-old makes a big difference for verbalizing. And also she's coming off the heels of the holidays and then her birthday and all of these times when it's become obvious to me that she has maybe an overabundance, because of some of those things, like, oh, I want more and I want a toy today and I want to go shopping for something, and which that triggers me. And
I think we can ask our kids, like, what relationships, what experiences did you have today with other kids that were your favorite? What toy
favorite, that's a good word for a 4-year-old.
Yeah, favorite's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But we can ask, if you ask, like, what was your favorite part of the day, and they spout out all the things they played with that they have, you can say, awesome, validate that. And then, like, what was who did you get to play with today that was the most fun, or something like that? Something that triggers them to think about their relationships versus their nutrition, or whatever it is that you want to step outside of the things and the stuff. Because kids often go right to the stuff because it's easy for them to explain. It's easy for them to find words for. Even I'm having a hard time finding the words right now.
Well, it is interesting because that's why it's such a powerful practice for people. I think the practice of gratitude is because it's not necessarily the default place where all of our minds go. That's why it makes such a transformative difference when you start doing it more intentionally. So cool. What do you do with some of your older kids? So for the listeners out there that have older children, besides just modeling them, because I know that you stand in gratitude a lot.
Yeah, we don't have practices so much like a gratitude jar where we put, I've tried things like that and they always get rejected. And so some of my favorite times to introduce conversations like this are driving in the car, because with older kids, driving becomes a really good opportunity to have conversations. So driving in the car, before bed is usually an opportunity where we can have deeper conversations. Dinner table, if people aren't eating dinner at the dinner table, it's such an opportunity not only to be grateful to be together and to be healthy and to be eating food, but to have those conversations. So I know there's some people who will have like a gratitude tree at their table or a gratitude jar.
What is a gratitude tree?
Like a little tree where you write notes and like clothespin them to the branches of the tree or something like that. Like a visual, like almost like a gratitude sculpture.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to look that up. I like that.
Super cute. And you could do it with anything. You could have like a clothesline on your wall where you clothespin thoughts of gratitude. A lot of times this stuff comes up around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Oh, you're right. I've seen like thankful tree kind of.
Yeah. And then people will stick to it for which is awesome. I think it'd be really fun to have and again, I'm just saying ideas that come to mind, not necessarily that we do, because they often get rejected in my house, but that could be the way that I'm presenting them. I think it would be really fun to have a wall in your house where the kids are allowed to write gratitude on, you know? Because
ooh, like a chalkboard wall or something like that.
Oh, there you go, chalkboard wall. Or like, you know, when you'll have a doorway where you measure the kids' heights, that kind of thing, like where there's this one piece of woodwork that you write your gratitude on. Or as a parent, I think Post-it notes are a really fun way to bring in gratitude, either in lunches or just on mirrors or drawers or the refrigerator. Sometimes written word, and I find that in today's day and age, even texting, written word is super powerful. Sometimes you don't need to have a conversation about it with your kids, but more to just put a Post-it note on the faucet where you get your clean water that says, like, you know, something to the effect of how grateful you are, how thankful you are for that clean water or the healthy food in the fridge or whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. And speaking of sort of the conversations and modeling and whatnot, we are both lucky enough to have full-time partners / lovers / co-parents. And I have to thank my husband for modeling this really well. I think a lot of times we sort of take for granted those closest to us in terms of like that showing of appreciation. And David is really good at modeling that for Aria. So like when we sit down to dinner at the table every night with a meal that 9 times out of 10 I've prepared, he's really great at saying, "Thank you, Mommy. This meal looks delicious. This tastes wonderful. Thanks so much for making us dinner, Mommy." And like totally models that for her. And it's part of the routine of, you know, like her showing appreciation for that because she sees him doing it.
Yeah.
So for people listening, I would say be very conscious of making sure that you are sharing that display of gratitude as much as possible, even for the mundane things that many of us take for granted, which usually happens to, you know, our partners and other members of the family and things like that. That
I think a lot of times
obviously it's expected that I make dinner, you know,
or the other way, like a lot of times whoever is the so-called breadwinner of the family, or sometimes I will consciously try to bring attention to being grateful that we have a car we can drive in because Daddy has a solid job that allowed us to purchase a minivan, you know. That
definitely
because it's really easy for our kids to forget that we actually work
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have the things we have in our life.
Absolutely.
Or most of us do.
And adding to that, just this morning, Aria and I were cuddling on the couch, and David got up early because Mondays he leaves early for his work, his jobs. And she was like sort of resentful that he was leaving. And it was a moment where I did get to say, like, oh, daddy, like daddy goes to work on these mornings and he goes early so that he can help take care of us and like keep castle over our heads and all this stuff. And her first reaction was like, ugh, daddy's leaving again. I wish he would just stay. Why won't he just stay? And she was like being resentful of him leaving. And we did get to like kind of transform that moment into gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like children do not necessarily appreciate that on their own.
And
they experience it very differently than we do.
It's really easy for me to forget why he goes to work.
Yeah.
Because the mortgage is paid on automatic pay and the electric bill's paid on automatic pay. And so just bringing that awareness to our kids is good for us too.
Yeah, I agree. And just like so many things in the world of parenting, it comes back to modeling so hard, like we can't expect our children to be better at this than we are.
Yeah, and I know my 4-year-old is super feisty. Like, what was the favorite part of your day? And he'll say, nothing. I hate everything. I hate everyone. And I don't let that, although sometimes it drives me nuts, I don't let it eat me, because I know that in the big picture, we are modeling for him a life that's very different than his stubborn answers. So it's not the modeling to fall back into that, to remind yourself, like, I'm teaching the lessons by living the life, even if the words out of his mouth are nobody, nothing. It was boring.
I love that. I'm teaching the lessons by living the life.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us through another episode and into our asks. Do you have sorry, ringing phone. I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often.
Oh. Oh yeah, I never even look at mine. I put mine on do not disturb when we're recording.
This is my house phone, which almost never rings. It's usually my cell phone is off the ringer, but probably.
Okay, so let's see. Our asks. I have one that I was gonna bring up a minute ago, and I'm just gonna make it my ask instead. And that is for all those people out there raising 4-year-olds or recent 4-year-olds, are they all this feisty? Because the feisty 4s is definitely what I'm experiencing. She is a firecracker, and everything is so intense, and it's fantastic greats and crazy not greats. So for all those other 4-year-old parents out there, share your stories and how you get through it, or any questions that you might have too, because Amanda and I both happen to have 4-year-olds at the moment, so I'm sure that anything you're struggling with or thinking about, we are too. So please share those in the Facebook group.
Did you just make that up, feisty 4s? Or
I did. Well, because you said feisty, and I'm like, that's totally the word that describes her.
True.
I'm wondering if they're all that way, or if it's just our kids. Can't be.
On the other end of the 4s, I think gratitude in teenagers is maybe one of the hardest ages to navigate. So if anyone has tips about gratitude in teenagers, those would be appreciated.
All right. Well, until next week, my friend, and all of my friends.